The restaurant buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses as I arrived, my heart light with excitement. It was supposed to be a warm, family gathering, one where we shared food, memories, and love. But the moment I stepped toward the large table where my in-laws sat, a sharp, cold voice cut through the air. "Oh, I don't think we have any seat left for you." My mother-in-law. Her voice dripped with condescension, her perfectly manicured fingers tapping against the wineglass as she stared at me like I was an uninvited guest at my own family's dinner. I glanced around. There was clearly an empty chair beside my husband. But before I could take a step forward, she smirked and added, "Actually, you weren't invited at all." The room seemed to tilt. My breath caught in my throat. My husband, sitting just a few inches away, said nothing. He simply looked down at his plate, avoiding my eyes. My stomach twisted. My hands clenched at my sides. "Excuse me?" My voice was calm, but my pulse roared in my ears. She leaned back, a victorious gleam in her eyes. "This is a family dinner. You don't belong here." A few of the other in-laws chuckled under their breath. The humiliation burned beneath my skin, but I refused to let it show. I scanned the table, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, their spouses, not a single person defended me. They all just watched. Some looked amused. Others indifferent. My husband cleared his throat but still didn't lift his head. That hurt the most. For years, I had tried to fit into this family. I had bent over backward, attending every gathering, cooking meals for them, remembering birthdays. But tonight, my MIL had made it crystal clear. I was an outsider. I could have argued. I could have begged my husband to speak up. But instead, I smiled. A slow, knowing smile. "Think high," I said softly, my voice steady. "You don't want me at this table?" I reached for my purse, adjusting it on my shoulder. "Let's see where I sit then." And with that, I turned away, ignoring the triumphant smirk on my MIL's face. Because she had no idea what was coming next. I walked away from the table with measured steps, my heels clicking softly against the polished floor. My MIL's smug laughter echoed behind me, the sound dripping with satisfaction. She thought she had won. She thought she had humiliated me in front of everyone. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I approached a nearby waiter, my tone light and casual. "Excuse me, could you tell me where the owner's reserved table is?" The waiter blinked in surprise before nodding respectfully. "Of course, ma'am. Right this way." From behind me, I heard the whispers start. Did she just ask for the owner's table? Is she joking? She's embarrassing herself. I didn't turn back. I simply followed the waiter as he led me through the restaurant, past the regular dining area, toward a luxurious corner where a grand, exclusively reserved table stood. The best seat in the entire restaurant. And then, I sat down. The gasps from my in-laws were almost comical. My MIL's laughter cut off immediately. My husband, who had barely glanced at me all evening, finally looked up, eyes wide with confusion. A few heads from other tables turned toward me, curious about what was happening. Even the restaurant staff exchanged knowing glances. They knew the truth. My in-laws didn't. And that's when I saw my MIL marching toward me, her face twisted in rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice low but sharp enough to cut. "That's the owner's table. Get up before you embarrass yourself further." I simply leaned back in my chair, picked up the wineglass in front of me, and smiled. "Oh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The confusion on their faces deepened. "You can't just sit here." My sister-in-law scoffed. "This is VIP seating. The owner himself sits here." I tilted my head, amusement bubbling inside me. They still didn't get it. "Oh, I know," I murmured. "Because this table belongs to me." Flashback, 3 months ago. Back then, no one knew that I had been working silently, building my own empire. While my MIL spent her time mocking me, treating me like an outsider, I had been making real connections. One evening, I met the restaurant's owner at a networking event. He was looking for investors to expand his chain, and I saw an opportunity. After a few meetings, we struck a deal. I became his silent business partner. No one, not even my husband, knew about it. I owned a percentage of this place. And my seat? The owner's table? It was mine. Present, back at the restaurant. The tension at the table was thick. Mil's face had gone pale. That's impossible, she spat. You're lying. I took a sip of my wine and raised an eyebrow. Am I? Just then, the restaurant manager approached with a polite smile. Ma'am, would you like your usual special service tonight? I smiled back. Yes, please. I could feel the stares burning into me as my husband, and the rest of the family struggled to process what was happening. And then, my snapped. You can't do this. Get up right now. You don't belong here. I placed my glass down and met her furious gaze with an unwavering calm. I think you're mistaken, I said softly. You don't belong here. This is my table now. The moment stretched between us, heavy with tension. Maya stood rigid, her face flushed with anger, disbelief flashing in her eyes. The rest of the family sat frozen, their gazes darting between me and the luxurious table I occupied. I let the silence linger, savoring the shift in power. Then, I finally spoke. You can always call the owner and ask him to remove me, I said smoothly, my voice carrying just enough amusement to make her seethe. Or, you can accept that I belong here. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. She turned to my husband, but he looked just as lost as she did. He had no idea what was happening either. This is ridiculous, she hissed. I don't know what game you're playing, but... Before she could finish, a voice interrupted. Is there a problem here? The restaurant owner had arrived. A well-dressed man with an air of quiet authority, he approached with a polite smile, and walked straight to me. Mil's smirk returned. Oh, finally, she sighed in mock relief. Tell this woman to get up. This table is reserved for you. But instead of responding to her, the owner turned to me. Good evening, he said, his tone respectful. I wasn't expecting you tonight. Would you like the usual service? I smiled. That would be lovely. Jaw. Drop. Moment. Mil visibly paled. The rest of the family exchanged stunned glances. What? My sister-in-law stammered. Why are you? Before she could finish, Mil suddenly jerked in shock. With a loud clang, the wineglass she had been holding slipped from her trembling hands, shattering against the floor. The entire restaurant seemed to pause at the sound. No, she whispered, her voice barely audible. This isn't possible. I leaned forward, resting my chin on my hand. What's not possible? I asked, tilting my head innocently. Mil's lips quivered as she pointed a shaking finger at me. You're not, the owner doesn't know you. The owner chuckled. Actually, she is my business partner. Silence. The color drained from her face. My husband blinked, his mouth slightly open in disbelief. My sister-in-law looked like she was about to faint. I've been working with her for months, the owner continued. She owns a substantial share in this restaurant. Which means, this table. It belongs to her just as much as it belongs to me. Mil staggered back. If it weren't for the chair behind her, she probably would have collapsed. And then, I twisted the knife deeper. Oh, and another fun fact, I mused, swirling the wine in my glass. You know all those lavish expenses you and my husband have been flaunting lately? The new car, the shopping sprees, the designer bags? My husband stiffened. Mil barely blinked, too shell-shocked to react. Let me tell you a little secret, I continued. That money? It indirectly came from me. The moment the words left my lips, my husband's head snapped toward me, his eyes wide with realization. What do you mean? He asked, his voice uneven. I gave him a slow, knowing smile. The profits from this business, my business, helped fund certain investments. And those investments? They're what helped boost the family's wealth recently. Understanding dawned on Mil's face. She had been bragging about her son's financial success for months. She had looked down on me, mocked me, banned me from this dinner, all while benefiting from my work. And now? Now she knew the truth. I took my sweet time savoring the moment, lifting my wineglass slowly, letting the rich aroma linger before taking a sip. The sheer irony of it all made the victory even sweeter. Mile, the woman who had publicly banned me from this dinner, now stood frozen in horror, completely out of her depth. I could see it in her eyes, the slow realization that she had lost. That the power she once wielded over me was gone. She was desperate to regain control. "This is ridiculous," she burst out, looking around for support. "There must be some misunderstanding. She's lying. There's no way she's the owner's partner." But no one backed her up. The restaurant staff stood by me. The family members who had smugly watched me get banned minutes ago were now silent. My husband looked like he was still trying to process what had just happened. I set my wineglass down and smiled at her. "Oh, you don't have to believe me. But the facts don't change." Her hands clenched into fists. I could see her pride cracking, the humiliation settling in. She had publicly mocked me, and now the truth had publicly shattered her. But I wasn't done yet. I leaned back, tilting my head slightly. "Oh, by the way," I said, my tone light, playful, but laced with something sharper. "Since this is my restaurant too, I figured I should be a good host." She frowned, wary. "What are you talking about?" I gestured toward the waiter standing nearby. "Could you please check the reservation under her name?" The waiter nodded and walked away, leaving Mil fuming. "This is absurd. You think you can just..." Before she could finish, the waiter returned and cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, addressing my Mil with professional politeness. "But it seems like your reservation has been cancelled." Silence. A visible shudder passed through my Mil's body. What? The waiter gave a small, apologetic smile. "Yes. Since you mentioned that a certain guest should not be allowed to dine here, well, the management assumed you wouldn't be dining either. Your table has been given to another party." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. My sister-in-law gasped, gripping her husband's arm. This wasn't just a slap, it was a knockout. My Mil had banned me from this dinner, and in return, she had banned herself. She turned to my husband, but he refused to meet her eyes. Even he knew there was no way out of this. The final blow landed softly, like a whisper in the wind. "Oh," I said, feigning sympathy. "Looks like you're not invited anymore." Her face turned a shade of white I had never seen before. The ride home was eerily silent, except for my Mil's sharp, frustrated breaths. She was seething, her knuckles white as she clutched her purse. My husband, sitting beside her, looked tense, his jaw tight. The moment we stepped inside the house, she exploded. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she screeched, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You planned this. You." I calmly set my purse down and tilted my head. "Planned what?" I asked, my voice smooth. "You banned me from the dinner, remember? I just found another seat." Her eyes darkened with fury. "You humiliated me in front of the entire family. How could you?" I let out a small laugh. "No, you humiliated yourself." I stepped closer, my voice dropping just a little. "Tell me, how does it feel to be the one left out?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. She knew. She knew exactly how it felt. I turned to my husband, who had remained quiet the whole time. He was gripping his phone, his brows furrowed in frustration. "Are you seriously not going to say anything?" I asked him. His eyes snapped to mine. "What do you want me to say?" he muttered. "You knew how my mother was. Why did you have to make things worse?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, so I made things worse? Not the fact that your mother has been treating me like an outsider for years? Not the fact that you stood there and let it happen?" He exhaled heavily, rubbing his face. "Look, I didn't want to make a scene in front of everyone." I folded my arms, my voice cold. "You didn't want to make a scene? So you let me get humiliated in public? You let your mother degrade me, and now that she's the one facing humiliation, suddenly I'm the problem?" He stiffened but said nothing. Mil, however, was desperate to regain her power. She scoffed. "Oh, please. Stop playing the victim. You got lucky, that's all." I turned to her, my expression unreadable. "Lucky?" I repeated. "That's funny. Because luck didn't get me that restaurant." Hard work did. Intelligence did. Something neither of you seem to understand. My husband took a deep breath and stepped forward, his tone suddenly soft. Babe, listen, he started, reaching for my hand. I know you're upset, but do we really have to fight like this? You proved your point. You won, okay? Can't we just go back to normal? I stared at his outstretched hand, then up at his face. Manipulation. This was his game. He had let me suffer when it suited him, and now that he needed me, he was suddenly playing the loving husband card. I slowly shook my head. No, I said quietly. We can't go back to normal. His face fell. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, letting the weight of everything sink in. Then, with calm finality, I said, because normal was you never standing up for me. Normal was me being treated like an outsider. And I've finally realized. I deserve better than that. His mouth opened slightly as if to argue, but he had nothing left to say. And for the first time, I felt free. A few weeks had passed since the dinner, and life had never felt more peaceful. Without the weight of my MIL's constant insults and my husband's silent betrayal, I finally felt free. I spent my evenings enjoying exquisite meals at the restaurant, where the staff treated me with the respect I had always deserved. The owner, my business partner, had even joked, with your sharp instincts, you should consider buying more shares. And just like that, I did. Now, I wasn't just a secret partner, I had majority control. Meanwhile, my husband had finally started to crack under the weight of his guilt. He had tried calling me multiple times, his voice sounding desperate in the voicemails he left. Babe, please. I know I messed up. I should have defended you. I didn't think it would get this bad. Just give me a chance to fix it. Fix it? I smiled as I deleted the messages without listening to the rest. Some things weren't meant to be fixed. And MIL? Oh, she had tried everything, calling my mother to complain, spreading false stories to the family, even showing up at the restaurant again. But this time, when she walked through those grand doors, she wasn't met with admiration or respect. She was met with security. Ma'am, I'm afraid we can't seat you. Her face twisted in disbelief. What? Do you even know who I am? I stepped forward, sipping my wine leisurely before setting the glass down with a soft clink. They know exactly who you are, I said smoothly. That's why they're not letting you in. Her face paled. You can't do this. I tilted my head, my smile mocking. Oh, but I can. You see, before, you got to decide who belonged in the family and who didn't. I leaned in just slightly, lowering my voice. But now, I decide who belongs here. And you? You're no longer welcome. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. With a flick of my hand, the guard stepped forward. Please escort her out, I instructed. As she was led toward the door, her eyes darted around, searching for anyone to support her. But the truth was, no one cared anymore. I turned back to my table, taking my seat, the seat of power. And as I picked up my glass again, I whispered the words that sealed her fate forever. Enjoy your dinner, somewhere else. Life has a way of turning tables when you least expect it. Those who try to bring others down often find themselves falling the hardest. Respect and kindness should never be mistaken for weakness because the quiet ones are often the ones holding the most power. Betrayal from loved ones hurts the most, but it also opens the door to a life free from toxic people. True strength comes from knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone dictate your place in the world. Some people will only value you when they need you, but by then, it's usually too late. Revenge isn't always about getting even, it's about rising so high that those who once looked down on you can no longer reach you. In the end, those who tried to push you out will watch from the outside as you thrive. Every story has a lesson, and this one is simple: never let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. The power to decide your worth is in your hands. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to follow for more. What would you have done in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments.